I haven't done jiu-jitsu since the start of this year, and I whooped your butt.
But then this year, 2024.
No, as in since the start of 2023, I haven't done any
Yeah, because
jiu-jitsu.
you're bigger than me.
Oh, because I'm
No,
bigger
it's-
than you.
it's not
I
like-
thought jiu-jitsu was supposed to be
Yeah,
about
I'm a-
technique and beating the bigger guy.
I'm a white belt with one stripe. I'm not that good.
Yeah, I haven't done any jiu-jitsu. I was actually still planning on what to do to you. And I tap. You're hurting me, Sean. That's what he said. Yeah. And then Kevin's just rolling around in the sand, literally enjoying life, going,
I enjoy
pull guard. And I told him, I said, pull guard. Go
I was
on.
trying to pull guard.
Yeah.
Pull guard, that's what he kept saying.
You mounted me. I was trying to pull guard.
Yeah, no, I'm just the better fighter.
You're a better fighter, and you're
Yeah.
bigger and stronger than me.
I'm bigger and
I don't have the
stronger. That's,
technique.
yeah. I thought
No.
that's why you pay this much money every week to go get your technique.
That's like saying, oh, hey, you went to guitar lessons for 3 weeks and you can't play Dragon Force.
Yeah, why not? But you've been going a lot longer than that. You've gone a lot
to be
longer
fair,
than I've gone.
I should be better.
Nah, look,
I will
look,
be
look.
fair. Oh, yeah?
To be fair, look,
Pull guard.
like it's gonna. I think when you're at blue is when you can say that even the biggest guys you'll be able to take on. Doesn't matter who it is, you'll be able to take them on.
I disagree.
So I do get that. I do get it. I get it.
Sean's just not. Sean doesn't know how to empathize with people who are smaller than him.
I'm just
'Cause
a
he's just used to
monster.
being a monster.
No,
Exactly.
you can be the victim all you like, but I just
Nah.
destroyed you.
The thing is, I
That's
got to
all it
take
was.
personal responsibility. I got to train harder, and then in a year's time, when I'm hopeful, I don't know if I'm a blue belt, then I'll take you.
That sounds good. We'll try again in a year's
Yeah,
time.
we'll do it. We'll film
Yeah,
it for.
still
Yeah,
whoop your
we're
ass.
definitely doing that. We're definitely.
We gotta do
doing
it. We
in a
gotta
year's
do. We
time.
do like a little
Yeah.
cage fight thing.
Absolutely.
No, back in the sand, like exactly the same.
Back in the
spot.
sand. All right, let's do it,
I'll
man.
still
I'll be
whoop
more
your butt.
shaved down for you as well.
I'll still whoop your butt.
You probably will.
Yeah.
Because I'm gonna turn
But
the
now
other
I'm a
cheek.
blue belt.
No, I'm a blue belt. I'm not a purple belt.
Pull
yet.
butt, pull guard.
Speaking of pulling guard, I think we should kick off, boys. Hey guys, welcome to the latest episode of Bridges of Belief. We've been away for a while, but we're back and we've mixed things up. We've got some videos. We're doing this in person. We got mics because I've had a lot of feedback about the audio quality, which is fair. No, it's good. We really appreciate the feedback. So if you guys have any more feedback, please let us know how we can make this better. And we have our very first guest, one of our best mates, Sean. We've known Sean for close to 20 years.
I've known Kevin for 20 years.
Yeah, okay.
2001 I met Kevin.
That's longer than 20
We
years.
actually went to primary school.
Primary school
20
together.
years.
And then eventually high school together. So, yeah, good to have you here, Sean. And we also have Betsy, and we have Jamie helping us out with everything that's
Producer
happening.
Jamie.
Producer Jamie. That's it. We love you. All right.
Yeah. So there's a bit of a history between us all. Sean has been a very good friend to all of us, and yeah, we've been wanting to have you on for a while, Sean. So thanks for coming along. Sean also, you're welcome, bro. And Sean also has his own podcast. We mentioned it before, but it's called the Untested Podcast. We'll put the mic down, getting used to this thing. He has a podcast called the Untested Podcast, covers similar ground,
Where we use microphones.
where they use microphones,
Throwing shade. These microphones.
So just letting you know, guys, we've had this massive argument about.
I haven't argued anything.
Using mic. Okay. So just to explain, the context is like a lot have let us know that you absolutely love our podcast, but some of you guys have let us know that the microphone quality is not the best because we're not
Especially
really
me.
using mics. And look, just to apologize, me and Poya were procrastinating a lot on the podcast. We knew we needed to do it, so we said quantity first. We'll get it out first. And then let's focus on quality. And now that's what we're doing. So we're getting some mics. So anyway, thank you for your feedback. Thank you for listening to us. The quality, the quantity, the everything is going to get better. I do want to put that as a disclaimer before we begin.
And please forgive us if we are weird with using these. I have no idea how far away I'm meant to hold this thing. Like this, I don't know.
That should be fun.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. But yeah, Sean's podcast is really good. I definitely I like your self-assuredness. It's good. Yeah. I don't know how else to respond to that. Yeah, it's good. I listen to it whenever I feel like I'm in a rut and it gets me going. But yeah, Sean, we're really grateful to have you on. And yeah, so I thought let's kick off. So today's episode is the first episode of the year. And what better topic than for each of us to share the biggest lessons that we have from 2023. Kevin, I'm going to pass this over to you to kick us off.
Yeah.
What is the biggest thing you've learned from 2023?
Yeah, sure. I'd love to share this because I shared it on Facebook on a post and I really want to share it because I think it's something that's deeply close to my heart and it took me a lot of pain to be able to come to this lesson. And here's the lesson. It's that for anyone who's listening, I know that all of us, we have dreams, we have goals, we have desires, and often there's a lot of things that get in the way. And I just want to share that everything that you want is on the other side of authenticity. This is what I learned this year, that if we're avoiding something, it catches up. If we lie to ourselves about something, it catches up. If we say we're going to do something, but we don't do it, it catches up. If we pursue something for superficial reasons, it catches up. If we're wanting something to be easier, then the difficulty of it catches up. We can't outrun the truth. So getting real about who we are, where we're at, what we're avoiding, and facing it is the only way to move forward. And I learned this especially in my relationship this year, where I was uncomfortable in my relationship. So I just found it easier to not have conversations, to not talk about certain things with my wife. So I would just do my own thing and have a really bland conversation and just do things just to avoid her, because I didn't want to face the truth. I didn't want to talk about it. And eventually, because I avoided it, and I knew I should have done something about it. I knew I should have confronted it. Because it was easier to just avoid it, the chasm between us got worse and worse, till I started making assumptions about Lisa, she started making assumptions about me, and we just felt like a huge divide, a huge void between us, that only when we realized how bad it was, we were forced to face the truth and actually deal with it. And ever since I faced the truth and I go, okay, our relationship's bad, we need to work on this, we need to work on this, we need to work on this, we were able to actually make progress on it. And I know that is the dynamic in every area. That is the dynamic in gym. You might look at your body just gets out of hand and you keep avoiding it. You keep eating crap, or you keep maybe not eating anything at all. And it just gets worse and worse. But only when we face it and we go, here's the problem. Here's where I'm at. I got to do something about it. And you walk through it and you look it in the eye is the only way you move forward. So that's the big insight that I learned, that everything comes down to being as authentic as you possibly can with yourself. I hope that was valuable, guys. And I'm going to pass it to Poya.
Yeah, thanks for sharing, man. That's definitely like something you put on my mind this like in the last year. I feel like the theme for your year was authenticity.
For sure.
I think like the biggest question I have, and I guess you may have already touched on it, but like how would you actually define authenticity? Like how do you get there? And how do you know if you're being authentic?
Yes, this is a really good question. I think there's many different frames in which I can actually even explain this. But for example, this is just one simple frame that I can explain this in. We've all been in a place where we've been at a dinner and maybe we're arguing with someone and we keep arguing, but we know we're wrong. And that's when you go into pride, where you are exaggerating yourself above what you really are and you're pretending that you know something that you don't. And when you're exaggerating yourself above what you are, you're not really being yourself. You're not really being authentic. And you have a little voice that goes, you're wrong, shut up. But you don't listen to it. But you can also equally, you can have a voice where you're beating yourself up and you're saying, I can't do this, I suck. But you also have an inner voice that goes, yeah, you can. So when you exaggerate yourself above what you are, you have a little voice that's bringing you back into the center. And when you go and you beat yourself up, you have a little voice that's trying to bring you up into the center. So authenticity is in between pride, where you exaggerate yourself and you expand yourself, and shame, where you minimize yourself. Who you are right in between, where you're being a douchebag to others and you're being a doormat to others, is who you are authentically being. So one of the things that I would give is to be very careful when you allow yourself to get carried away with something, and remind yourself to bring yourself back down into the center. For example, like there was periods where I was maybe doing a workshop and I had everyone come up to me and say it was really good. And I found myself getting really excited by the praise and the feedback, and I was getting very addicted to it. Too much to a point where the next workshop that I was doing, I was expecting that praise. And when I didn't get it, I was feeling really bad about it. So instead, what I did now was whenever I feel that praise and I feel really good about the feedback, I remind myself, okay, you know what? Even though the feedback's good, I could have done this better. I could have done this better. I bring myself back into the center and I don't let myself get too carried away. So staying in the middle is the middle zone of authenticity. I know we're getting a little bit too complex, but I found like that's an explanation that seems to make sense. And as we go through the podcast, I'll probably have more explanations and angles that I can explain things, but hopefully that made sense.
Yeah, I wanted to follow up with that. So why do you think people will be, like, people go into inauthenticity for a reason, right? It's not like they just do it out of the blue. Why do you think people like do that? And what made, I guess you touched on why you may have done that, but yeah.
As I'm as you're talking, as you're sharing this question again, I think the easier way to explain authenticity, the way I explain is one way, but the other way is that we lie to ourselves. And we all know when we lie to ourselves. We've all reached for the donut, but before we reach for the donut, we need to lie to ourselves and be like, it's okay. It's almost like we're not going to reach for the donut unless we lie to ourselves.
Yeah.
And we know when we lie to ourselves. We've done it so many times. So one of the ways to be authentic with yourself is to be very aware by looking back at all your circumstances and realize where you've lied to yourself, and to be able to get real with yourself and do the right thing that you know you need to do. We've all had a situation where we're arguing with someone and we know we need to say something or confront someone, but we don't because it's easier not to. In that moment, you got to do the right thing and tell the truth. I think authenticity also comes down to being able to notice the temptation of wanting to lie because it's easier, and then coming back to wanting to tell the truth, just like Jordan Peterson talks about. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. Sean, did you have any questions or thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with the authenticity, because to me that's being truthful and just being true to yourself but true to others around you. Like you were saying about Peterson, here's one thing that he says is, even if you aren't telling the truth or being true, it comes out eventually. So if you're putting on a front for people, or if you're even putting on a front for yourself, because that's how you want to act or how people want you to act, eventually somewhere you slip up.
Yep.
Eventually somewhere you get comfortable with someone and then your true self comes out. And then that's when the authenticity starts to wear off, so to speak, if it's that fake version of yourself. So it just happens regardless of whether you want it to or not.
Yeah.
At one point or another, whether it's in front of people or even behind closed doors.
Yeah.
So like Kevin was saying, it's best to just do it in front of people and to own it, because that way people actually gain your trust and build it, but also you don't have to pretend to be someone. You're just being yourself the whole time.
Sean, can I ask you a question, right? And obviously this has been a big theme for me, but I want to ask from your angle as well. Let's just say you've got someone listening who's just, okay, I know that there's an area I need to tell the truth. I know that there's an area where I need to be real with myself. I know that there's an area that I've been avoiding that I need to be real with. And they're like, but it's hard, I don't want to. What would you say to someone who's just, I know what to do, but I don't want to because it's too hard?
It's so hard to answer that, because you know me, my thinking is so different. I'm a straight line kind of guy. I would say just do it.
Yeah.
But there's fear, there's anxiety.
Yeah.
And it was what we were talking about in the car, like how what you want most is where you don't want to look.
Wow.
So you have to put yourself in an uncomfortable situation.
Yep.
Almost desensitize yourself from something that you're fearing, you're anxious about, and get out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
And that's when you can get to that next level of authenticity, or who you quote unquote truly are. That's what it is. You have to be uncomfortable. That's basically the answer.
Yeah,
you have to
yeah,
rip
yeah.
off the Band-Aid, so to speak.
Yep. So I guess in summary, it comes down to
Just
what,
do it.
what Nike said, just do it.
Yeah,
you know?
honestly, that's my answer.
And you know what, Sean? I've discovered that even as a mindset coach doing this for 4 years, it comes to a point where there's only so much mindset that can happen.
Strategy.
It's just, sometimes it's just do it. But I will say that once you do it, you train your muscle that gets good at doing it.
For sure.
And it gets easier and easier to take that run, that jump, and overcome that line of hesitation that you experience. But if you don't do it for a long period of time, and if you keep giving in to the easy thing, if you keep lying to yourself, then it becomes very difficult.
It becomes more difficult.
Yeah. It becomes very difficult to rip off that Band-Aid and do the authentic thing so you can have or be or do the thing that you know you need to do.
It's exposure therapy, right?
Yep.
I don't know if you guys have talked about this on your podcast, but I'll explain exposure therapy in the most basic way possible. And exposure therapy is to conquer fears. So when I was in university doing psychology, one of the subjects was psychology, they put on a video of a lady that was afraid of snakes, like deathly afraid of snakes, to the point where they put up a printed picture in front of her and she'd start squirming and even tears in her eyes. That's how afraid she was of snakes. And they said, we're going to get rid of this fear in one day. And what they did was, in this massive boardroom, which was like 10, 20 meters wide or whatever, they actually got a live snake and were standing at the other end of the room with it. And she was on one end. And she's crying and squirming and holding herself. And then they just sat there with it and just said, just look at it when you can. And keep looking at it. And then every few minutes or every hour or whatnot, they kept stepping a bit closer to her. Until she was so desensitized from her fear of the snake that by the end of this day, she was touching this snake.
Wow.
I know that you might think, where does this kind of relate? But it's the exposure therapy, exposing yourself to that uncomfortable thing, whether it be what Kevin said about having those tough conversations with people. Start them small. An example that I have of that is one of my friends, I said this on my podcast, was he was very afraid to not confront me about something, but ask me a question. He didn't know how I'd react.
Yeah.
So he practiced by texting it to me first. And then waiting for my response.
Yeah.
And then when my response was way better and not as like scary as he realized, he texted me going, "Thank you so much for that. I couldn't do this in person." He saw me that morning. He couldn't do it.
Wow.
He couldn't do it to me. He couldn't ask me the question. He had to do it over text. And I said, "I'm glad you practiced in one way or another. Whether it be via text, via, I don't know, voice message or something, to even practice saying the words.
Yeah.
But just desensitizing yourself and practicing it in one, talking to yourself in the mirror and doing it that way. Just to get the words out. And it's that whole manifestation thing until it comes out.
Yeah. Bro, that that exposure therapy definitely helps you do the things that you avoid. And I often think about that analogy that Jordan Peterson gives when he talks about, before the baby dragon becomes a big dragon and comes and hunts, you go to the dragon's lair and you kill that baby dragon, right? And the thing that I always think of is that whatever you avoid always becomes bigger.
For sure.
And whatever you chase always becomes smaller. If there's bills that I have that I'm not looking at, I'm avoiding them, they'll rack up interest.
Yep.
And they get bigger
Penalties.
and they'll come and hunt me. By penalties, they'll come and hunt me. And I've done that before. But if I go there and I kill it where it is, then it doesn't really grow. If there's relationship problems that I'm avoiding, like I told you in my last example, they get bigger and they come for you to a point where you say to each other, "Man, I'm done with you." But if you hunted it there and then, it would stay at its size. So it's an important reminder that there's so many things that we as human beings we're avoiding. Maybe it's relationships things, maybe it's financial things, maybe it's like health things that we're doing. And it's if we just go to its lair, we look it in the eye and we hunt it and we attack it there and then, it doesn't get as big. And we grow in authenticity and we grow in our characters. One of the important things to share.
I want to quickly add something to that. It's going to change the topic, but it's more about facing your fears and stuff. And I've talked about this on my podcast. It's the cows and buffaloes analogy. I don't know whether you've heard of it. Poya definitely has because of just his response. But this is like, I don't even know if it's a real fact, but I love this story and you will too, Kev. So they say when a storm is approaching, a buffalo will run towards a storm. And a cow will run away from a storm. And just think about this with two different mindsets, basically. The buffalo knows if it runs towards the storm and the storm is coming towards them, eventually they'll cross paths, but then they'll actually go past each other. So going through that fear and challenge, and then they've actually overcome it and gone past it. Wow. Whereas a cow will run away from it, and the storm will chase it and follow it, and then the cow gets stuck in the storm and keeps trying to run, but the storm will always just keep following it. So they actually don't get out of their quote-unquote storm or challenge, but the buffalo knows go through it to get out of it faster.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's legit.
Yeah. I don't know if it is, but I love it if it is.
It's a great analogy, though.
I have something I want to add to that as
for
well,
sure.
because I think that was pretty much my journey last year. Yeah, I've mentioned before I had a rough 2022, and pretty much what I did last year for a lot of it was just avoid it. And the tornado just got bigger, and I kept chasing me. And you kept telling me, you both were telling me, you got to face it, you got to deal with it. And I didn't, and then things just got worse. And then when I dealt with it, it hurt more than ever needed to. And I think, but on the other end of that, I think, at least personally, I felt like I've become a more authentic person. That's thanks to you guys as well. But that's a real life example, I think, of that principle that I've experienced. And I know you had a really rough year last year as well, Sean. Yeah, if you'll share as much as you're willing to. But I saw what you did was you just ran straight into that tornado, towards it.
Hell yeah, I did.
Yeah, man. And look at you now. You're the best I've ever seen. You're in the best shape you've ever been in. You've got your whole podcast and your PT business doing really well. You're making a massive impact in your day job, which... yeah, if you're comfortable sharing that, feel free to do so. You are a better friend than you've ever been, and you've always been a great friend, but you've just gotten better. Yeah, man. So you're you're a testament of what happens when the storm comes, and you just go straight for it. You went through it, and it wasn't nearly as painful as it would have been if you left it.
For sure. Well, I appreciate the kind words too, Poya. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Definitely second.
Do you reckon it's time for your lesson now?
I want you to go next.
No, I want you to go first.
No, you go next.
I'm still
thinking of it. Okay.
I've got a few in my head.
All right. Thanks for sharing, man. That was a great lesson. I love that. Okay, so my one... Yeah, I'll just jump straight into it, man. My one is honestly, I think for me, the biggest lesson in 2023 is just to really rely on God and make that the foundation of my life. And I recognize that may sound a bit, I don't know, bit like of a cliche or a platitude if you're someone who's not religious, but I don't totally get that. But man, like, yeah, beginning of 23, I was in one of the darkest headspaces I've ever been in. Really bad. Kev, you saw it.
Yep.
Sean, you saw it. Thanks for getting me the jiu-jitsu, man. That really helped. But
You're still not very good at it, but keep going.
yeah,
Pull guard.
Freaking pull guard right there. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, start of last year, like really bad. I felt like I was wearing a weighted vest, and it felt like my heart was in a vice. And I was like, man, I should like probably pray about it and lean on God and all that mumbo jumbo. That's what I thought of it, mumbo jumbo. But instead, all I did, I just went hard into self-help. I was doing like Wim Hof every day. I went to jiu-jitsu. I was trying to meditate, gym, journal, all of that stuff. I read so many like self-help books. I was doing all these ridiculous journaling exercises, and that stuff's all valuable. Like that stuff's really good, but it didn't actually solve the problem. Like, it wasn't just my heart that was hurting, it was my soul. And I think a lot of our mental pain is also like a spiritual pain. And yeah, I'd pretty much be like, all right, if I wake up, first thing I gotta do is like breathing exercise and stuff, instead of first thing I wake up is pray, read, spend time in the Word, all of that. And so I avoided that, man. I avoided so much of that. And again, I pretty much was running from the tornado, just to use your example before, and it got worse. And then I think it was like the beginning of September, I'm like in a really bad headspace and like really bad. And I had everything I wanted in life. I got a house. I ended up moving to an area I love. Objectively, my life was sick, but I just felt so low. And then I went to this spot. I just got my Bible out. I'm like, all right, I'll do this. I'm just going to read my Bible first in the morning. Drive to this spot. I can see the Harbour Bridge. It's lit. And then I'm reading Ecclesiastes, and the line where it's like everything's meaningless just really hit me. And I realized I'm trying to like solve all my problems through self-help, through buying material things, through achieving things. And none of that made me feel better. I felt worse after. If anything, I felt worse. Like I felt worse after I bought my house. I felt worse after I moved. Like none of that made me feel like I was valuable of love or at peace. And then I read that.
Why do you think you felt worse? If you did everything that like most people would feel like would progress their lives, like moving in, getting the house, doing well at your job, doing jiu-jitsu, facing your fears. If you did all that, why do you feel like you felt worse?
It's like I broke my leg and I was taking cold medicine to fix it. And maybe that's a weird analogy. Yeah. Or a better one is I was building my house on sand and not on rock. Like it wasn't a solid foundation. Now that stuff's all good, but there wasn't any foundation, and so it crumbles. Yeah, I got like a little dopamine hit when I bought the house, and I was like, yeah, cool, I've leveled up.
What do you mean by foundation?
As in, that's the basis of, that was like the basis of my value, or that's going to bring me healing. If I buy this house, I'm going to feel like I'm better. I'm going to feel better about myself. I'm going to feel like I'm worth something, and it's going to cure all my problems. Or if I move closer to the city, near like my church and my mates, I'm going to feel better about myself, and I'm going to finally be valuable, and the pain will go away.
Yeah.
But it doesn't do anything because it's not going to the root of the problem. It's you're pulling out weeds. You're clipping the weeds, not pulling them out.
Where do you feel like the root of the problem was?
It was really in that I just felt worthless, and I didn't feel worthy of love, and I didn't feel that I had inherent value. And I think, honestly, a lot of our problems probably can be distilled down to something like that.
Yeah.
I think a lot of our problems are love-based. Could be wrong, but that's my perspective at the moment. Yeah. And I think as I as I read that verse, I started becoming more convicted, and I started like just trying to spend more time with God. I'd just be praying. If I felt low, I'd just pray. And look, it wasn't like this immediate fix, but over time, like I did feel a change. And then even recently, I've been every morning just reading the Gospels and like actually reading it, like studying it, like writing notes in my Bible, arguing with the text, like looking at the words of Jesus, getting confused by them, looking up stuff, trying to really figure out what it's saying, not just reading and be like, all right, cool, that's like my box tick for the day. And I've even noticed in the last few days, I've been less angry, I've been more kind and more like other people focused. Like I remember there was a few mornings where I just woke up really angry and filled with anxiety. I was like ready for a fight, and I just went to the beach and I just read the word. I had my pencil and I was just like, I was like, all right, I'll do it for 10 minutes. I ended up going for an hour. I just couldn't stop. And I just felt so much calm and I felt so much like love in my heart for people. And I think it made me more authentic. And I think like how I would define authenticity, which might be different from yours, is being the best version of yourself, which is the most Christ-like version of yourself, because I believe we're all made in the image of God. So it's like the most Christ-like version of yourself is the most authentic self, because that's the best you. And when I did that, it's all these problems I had, these feelings of worthlessness, like I'm not worthy of being in a relationship, I don't deserve that, but I don't deserve my friends, they can do so much better than me. All of that crap just slowly melted away. And even a week ago, I was feeling insecure about some of this stuff. We were hanging out last week, you guys saw what I was like last Friday night when we had dinner. And then the next day I started reading Matthew, and all that melted away. And you were even saying, like, when I came into your house later that day, so that was last Saturday, you were saying your wife Lisa noticed I was more centered and more just not trying to impress anyone and just being myself. And that's rare for me. Like, I can be at times quite anxious and feeling like I need to impress people. And I guess that all just came down to putting God first and having a relationship with Him. I like to call it drinking from the well, because I was thirsty. I wasn't drinking the living water, and so I was just thirsty. And I was drinking normal water, like buying a house or something like that, instead of just going to God. And when I go to the words of Jesus, that's when I feel so much love, and I actually like the reality of God loving me is not just here, but it's felt here, and then that radiates out, and that's the root of my problems. And since doing that, I've just been in a much better headspace, and I feel like I've just been more productive. I'm more, in terms of achieving goals, there's less of that anxiety, because it's like I don't need to prove myself. Like I don't need to like make this podcast amazing because my value's not attached to it. I just want to do it because I like it and I want to love people through it, and that's all that matters. And if it fails, it's not like the worst thing ever, right? While before I'm like, no, this is like a reflection of who I am. And I think the other thing on top of that is also relying on God's strength. Like I was just trying to rely on my own strength to get through everything. And I remember there was 1 month where I was really bad mentally, and I just was like, screw this, I'm just going to pray. And it just got me through. That's it. It wasn't my strength. It was all God's strength. Do you guys have any thoughts? What are you guys' thoughts on that? Or have you had similar experiences?
Yeah, one of the things I'll say is one of the other lessons I definitely learned this year was that you as a human being, if you're going after goals, dream, or any type of lifestyle, and you, especially when you have big ambitions, you can't do it on your own, because there are so many circumstances that are out of your control. And if you go about life and you want to do things on your own, yet knowing that so many things are out of your control, you're always going to be highly strung. You're always going to be super anxious. So one of the biggest things that I learned this year was to surrender to a higher power. Some people call that God. Some people call that the universe, infinite intelligence. I call it God. And me surrendering to God and having the perspective of, I'm going to do my best. I'm going to be disciplined, but I'm going to surrender the rest, and I'm going to let God do the rest, has given me this sense of flow, has given me this sense of, okay, I'm going to be disciplined, but I understand that God's got it all in His hands, has just made things so much smoother, so much easier for me. So coming back to you and what you're sharing, like I totally have discovered a very similar thing, and that's probably why me and you have bonded, that surrendering things to God and doing things of God have been massively monumental in our walk of personal development.
Yeah.
So I totally get what you're saying. I feel like that's why we've definitely connected this year, because we've discovered that same insight at the same time. And it's really interesting. I felt like as I've discovered this insight, as Poya have discovered this insight, he's given us each other to be able to have conversations like this and to be able to like really dig deep and understand what God's actually been trying to tell us. So it's been super cool doing this with you. But I think it just further confirms what you're saying, what I'm saying, and probably that we're heading in the right journey. And if for some of you guys, you're listening to this and you're thinking, yeah, this is really hitting me as well, probably God is speaking to you too through what we're saying. Be curious about it.
Yeah, dude, I love that. Yeah, I love that we've had that same journey. You've been an instrumental part, both of you. I don't think I would have been in this point in my faith if not for the influence of you guys and you guys inspiring me. I freaking love you guys, and thank you.
You too, bro.
Appreciate it, man.
Me too.
Been a bit of bromance for you guys. Yeah, Sean, do you have any thoughts or any experiences similar?
Yeah. How's the battery, Jamie? Is it all right?
Looking good. How do I check that?
I don't know, just tap it on the screen. Oh, it should be fine.
Yeah, we're good.
We started at 50 something.
Yes.
Thank you, producer Jamie. Shout out to producer Jamie.
Producer
I want you
Producer
guys.
Jamie.
I want you guys to get him on the show as well.
Oh,
please.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
sure, PJB.
Jamie's a gun.
Yeah, he'll get on there. He's not like Joe Rogan Jamie, but we'll get there. We'll get there.
Yeah.
In terms of what Poya was talking about in his lesson, I think I've had similar experiences because like this goes back to what Kevin was saying as well. They almost intertwine where what you're looking for most, or if you don't even know, if you sit there and meditate and pray and just be on your own for a bit, you figure out what it is. It comes to you, it calls to you, or you in your consciousness comes to the front, where you sit there, you close your eyes and go, what do I really want? Something happens and you go, okay, I don't want the car, I don't want the house, I don't want to go out with my friends for dinner all the time. It's I need to do something with purpose in my life. Or I need to pray, or I need to worship.
Yeah.
And that comes back to the authenticity that you were talking about, as well as your putting your faith and following through with God. And that's happened to me multiple times last year, 2023. And that's Poya and Kevin actually put me on my own faith journey as well. He might be a white belt in jiu-jitsu, but I'm a white belt in the faith. So we'll get there. No one's ever a black belt, right? So just remember that. But yeah, I think it's when you sit there and actually think about it, you do get the answer you're looking for.
Sean, I have to share this quote that I heard yesterday.
Yeah.
And I'll find out who's it by, but it says, so many of man's problems exist because of his inability to sit in a quiet room alone.
For sure. Like 2024, man, how many things can we do instead of sitting in a quiet room?
Everything.
Talking TikTok.
Social media,
Yep.
games,
Vapes.
YouTubes, dopamine hits, TV,
Sugar.
talking to each other, not
Uber
being our
Eats.
authentic self. You can go on for hours on the things you could do instead of... Do you know how many people... Oh, sorry, I've got to bounce off you now, but I was listening to Chris Williamson, Modern Wisdom, and he said there's an exercise they do with these pro gamers, these pro streaming gamers, that this guy does, and it's a therapeutic exercise. He makes them sit on the floor and stare at a blank wall for 30 minutes, and they can't do it.
Wow.
You know what happens to them? Like,
wow.
Listen and watch it for yourself, but he says they freak out.
Yeah.
They scream. They actually start to rage out. They can't do it
Wow.
because of what they're so stimulated and used to doing. And then imagine someone who's got
TikTok
some...
brain.
Yeah. But imagine someone who's got some mental health issues and battles or deep thoughts that they're trying to suppress.
Yep.
Imagine what happens to them when they stare at a blank wall. There's nothing to stop those thoughts coming out. So it's opening up the closet that you've locked.
And I think that comes back to what you were saying about you need to be able to rip off the Band-Aid.
Otherwise it grows, right? Otherwise the wound grows.
But otherwise it gets worse. But I feel like in situations like that, like what you said, where sometimes you do need to be silent on your own, it's one of those situations where it's like, it's so difficult in the beginning, it's messy in the middle, but it's rewarding at the end.
For sure.
And yeah, there's probably so much to say on that. But anyway, I'll let you go and we'll definitely jump more into the conversation. Yeah, go on.
Do you want my lesson
Yes,
now,
your
or-
lesson, please. Yeah.
Honestly, guys, like, silly of me, like, I knew we were going to talk about this, but I've been, like, just trying to think of which one I want to do, because I learned many a thing in 2023. And this is probably the ones that I actually had were very similar to both of you. So I want to give them a different dimension. And this will still be
Sure.
very helpful to everybody. But we'll start with a story. I won't just tell you my lesson straight off the bat. We'll start with a story.
Sure.
Because I love a good story. I love a good parable.
We love a
Just
good
like
story.
the cows and buffaloes.
Yeah.
Here's another one for you. There was this national famous architect and builder in Japan. He was well renowned for his ability to build the best quality houses for multimillionaires and rich people and whatnot. He'd been doing the job for 30, 40 years. He goes to his wife, I've had enough. I think I'm done. The wife goes, okay, that's okay. You can spend time with your kids, your grandkids, enjoy the rest of your life now. He goes to his boss. He knocks on his door and he says, I just to let you know, thank you for everything. It's time for me to retire. And the boss goes to him, we appreciate everything you've done for us. You've been an amazing service. You've done every house to the best of your ability. I have one favor to ask before we let you just leave, and that's to build one more final house. This can be your parting gift to us, but also we can leave on good terms. And he wasn't very happy, but he said, okay, I'll do it. And he was in such a hurry because he'd already put in his mind, I'm retiring, I'm going on holidays, I'm spending my time with my family now. So he rushed the house. He didn't do it to the best of his abilities, and he rushed the process, and it wasn't to the best that he'd ever done. But in whatever time, he came back to his boss and said, that final house is done. Thank you very much. It's time for me to leave. And the boss said, just before you leave, I just have a gift for you. Thank you so much for everything. And he slides over a box on the desk. This builder opens the box and it's a key. And he said, that key was to your own house. Thank you so much for that. What he did was he built his own house. Did he do it to the best of his abilities? No. We are all, quote unquote, building our own house. And now my lesson comes out is how you do anything is how you do everything. So mine's more of a habitual, a habit-based lesson. And we're obviously about the faith here, but this is one that's a bit more shallow, but it'll still come in handy for people. It's just your abilities to do your habits to the best of your ability. It's just the ability to go, this bed still has creases in it even though I've made it. It's the ability to go, I ran those laps around the oval, but I didn't cut the corners.
You know what, bro? The word that comes to me is two words: excellence and integrity. Which is almost like doing the thing that, like, no one's looking. You're not going to get any reward from it. No one's going to clap you on about it. It might not be even cool, but you still do it because it's the right thing to do.
For sure.
And I remember when me and you took me on your weighted run, where Sean puts on a 20 kilo backpack.
30 kilo.
30 kilo backpack, right? He gave me a little cheeky 10K one, so I didn't feel bad. But we went on the run and like, I remember when I go on runs, I'm like, okay, I'll just do one lap and I'll get in. And he's like, no, like and it was a full 1 hour walk, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a walk. It was a hike, uphill, downhill.
Downhill, it had everything in it. And I was like, wow, you do this. And he's, yeah, I do this almost every day. And it just reminded me that this is why so many of the people that I know that are very successful, they have these routines, they have these principles that they believe in, and they do it with excellence. They don't skim out, they don't cut it out, they do it with integrity, even when no one's looking, and it just gives them some sense of certainty, some sense of power that you can just sense it on them. So what I sense is that's what Sean's talking about right now. Yeah, but I'll let you take it deeper.
Just that reminds me of a few scriptures. It reminds me of, I think, I can't remember which books, maybe 1 Peter, where, Peter, one of the apostles, he's writing a letter to a church. He says something like, work at everything as if you're working for the Lord. And that's, if you're an accountant, right? You're like, oh, I'll get like this audit done, whatever. I'll just like get it done. Like you'd work for a lot differently if you knew it was for God, right? If you're working directly for God, you'd be like, I want to do the best job possible. I want to honor him. And I think faith-wise, I think it's so relevant because it's all about the heart, right? Like how you do anything is how you do everything. The heart that drives your actions drives every other action. So if you're like being messy with your room and not being disciplined and maintaining that, you're going to be messy with other areas of your life.
For sure.
And if you're lax with certain behaviors, if you're okay with doing a small little white lie every now and then, you're going to lie about bigger things as well. Yeah. It's the same heart of deception.
That reminds me of some of the clients that I have, right? Like in my coaching business, I'll speak to them first couple of sessions. They just seem like their mind is so cluttered. They're all over the place. And anyway, they'll be showing me something on their computer screen. And as I look, there is 150 tabs open. And it just goes to show your physical space, your environment is really a reflection of almost everything like you do. Almost like what Sean says, how you do one thing is how you do everything. And it's like, how can they expect their space, their computer to be so cluttered and they want their mind to be clean?
Imagine their car, Kevin. I could always assume that their car has mess in it too.
Yep.
Their bedroom, their desk.
Yeah.
Anything is everything.
Yeah. And it's funny that when I clean my stuff, I feel so much better. So that makes sense as well. But anyway, you probably got more to say on this.
Yeah, it's just going back to the habits, right? Like the examples I was giving, it's such small things that can obviously escalate into bigger things, but that could be obviously positive as well. And now I'm gonna divulge a story. I said this on my podcast anyway, so it's not a massive thing. But I'm a high school teacher, and one of my students was not doing work and assessments to the best of his ability. He was bragging about it.
Bragging about not doing it to his ability.
Yeah, bragging
Right.
about it.
Oh, I didn't try hard.
But not even getting good grades, but
Right.
bragging that, yeah, I didn't try hard. I
Right.
didn't put this much effort into it. And one day I gave him somewhat of a lesson of how you do anything is how you do everything. Because I was saying that this is just your school paper in year 8, year 9, year 10, whatever. But what happens when it's at your job? What happens when it's the HSC? What happens when it's, if they play sports, on the sporting field? It eventuates into bigger habits. And it starts with the smaller one. It's, we'll go as small as this, and I think I gave this example to that student specifically, is when you've eaten lunch on your table and you've washed your dishes, but maybe you didn't wipe down the table. But maybe you didn't dry the dishes and put them away. Just all those little things that will add up. And I know it's such a minuscule task, but the smaller tasks and those small wins become bigger ones or bigger losses, depending on where you go with them, just like you were saying.
And you know what? Like, when I think of what you're just saying, that's a perfect example. It's like you might do one thing, but like maybe you didn't wipe the desk down.
Yep.
And when I look at, if I was to categorize the people who, with any situation, the people who do the minimal and they go, could I have gotten away with doing even less? Whereas the hardest workers, they'll do as much as they can and still worry if they haven't done enough. And what you'll notice is there's a clear difference between the results of what the first group get and the result of what the second group gets. The second group, they just do everything to a higher standard. And you'll notice they're the people with the most promotions. They're the people who are the best sports people. They're the people who are the most successful. They're the people who make the most money. So if you're coming back to, okay, like what actually creates success, it's exactly what Sean says, like doing everything to a higher standard. That's it. It's just high performance people have higher standards in everything that they do.
That actually reminds me, Kevin. Sean, you mentioned this on your podcast. It's the year 2024, and the number 24 was Kobe Bryant.
That's crazy.
Number.
I was literally thinking about Kobe Bryant, and that's what you talked about.
Black Mamba mentality.
So funny. I was just about to tell a Kobe story.
Wow,
No, you go, man.
that's so
no,
good.
you're the Kobe guy, so I
That's
want you to
good.
share about that.
Like,
No, I don't know the Kobe story as well as you. So I think
No,
it's
full guard. Good.
Full guard. No, full guard.
What Kobe stories have we got? We got a couple. If basketball, Kobe Bryant was a legend, probably renowned as the second or third greatest player to ever play the game, underneath obviously like your Michael Jordans and your LeBron Jameses. What stories can we think of? This is one that comes to mind. One basketball player, Jay Williams or something, who was going to play against Kobe that night. This is what happened. He said, I didn't play well the day before, so I'm going to get to the court early and I'm going to shoot. He gets there early. It's 12 hours before the game. He gets there. Kobe's already there shooting on the opposite end. Didn't say hello or anything to him because he's going to play him that night. So he's shooting on one end, Kobe's shooting the other end. And Kobe's already fully sweating, fully drenched. So he's been there a while. And then this guy, Williams, does an hour or two and he's okay, I'm done. Looks over, Kobe's still going. He's, I got to go, got to have a shower, eat, whatever, have a nap before the game. They play a game that night, they lose, and Kobe scores 40. And then after the game, he goes up to him and he goes, I got to ask, first of all, how did you do that or why did you do that? And Kobe said, because I saw you enter the gym. And he said, I didn't want, and he goes, I actually was going to pack up and leave, but I wanted to make sure you did it before I did it. So he actually said, I wanted to make sure you knew that I worked harder than you. That was the only reason I stayed behind to keep shooting.
Wow.
Just almost out of spite.
Wow.
To ensure that he knew he worked harder.
Wow.
So there's just a different mindset like you were talking about.
Yeah.
But that's where those people can reap the rewards that people can't even dream of.
Man mentality.
And that comes down to faith as well. And how much commitment you bring to it. How often you pray, how often you read your Bible, how often you do devotion. So it's the same thing, and it translates to any region of life.
Yeah. Yeah, brilliant.
Bro, I love that story. Yeah, I don't even have words. That's just insane.
And for anyone listening, this is what I want to be the takeaway from what Sean said in Sean's lesson, which is a really good reminder even to myself as I'm thinking this. It's do everything to the best of your ability. It's like right now, it's funny. Like I was doing this podcast, I was like lounging in my head. I was just like tired, food coma after the massive meaty meal that we just ate. Man, shout out to that Brazilian place we had. But just now I was just thinking, am I doing this to the best of my ability? And it's no. And I found myself perk up and found myself breathe a little bit more, get my energy back, bring more intention to it. And it's everything. We've got that option. And throughout the year, it's just going to be opportunities upon opportunities to not only do the fun things in a better way and the exciting things in the better way, but to do the mundane and the boring things in a better way. And it's funny, one of my mentors, Kerwin Ray, says a successful business is not built by doing all the fun things. A successful business is built by doing the boring fundamentals consistently over a long period of time. And if that goes for business, that brings business success. That goes for everything. So it's no matter what it is, boring, fun, nice, do it to the best of your ability.
And I think that actually, I'll go into the next point. The other point, just to add to that, because that's fantastic. I love that. Yeah. And just on the, actually, no, I'll go into the mundane things first. It reminds me of when we were talking about exposure therapy before.
Yep.
The more you do these boring, mundane things, the more it just becomes nothing.
Yep.
And you get through it. Because there is a pain there. And I love how David Goggins will talk about finding yourself on the other side of pain. The more you do these boring, mundane things, the more that you find the better version of yourself, because you're taking action and you're not wasting time. And I think as well, just to circle back a bit, in terms of like how you do anything is how you do everything, I think that even ties into rest. Because I think a big problem in our culture, and I know you've had a big journey with this year, on the last year, Sean, and this is something I still need to learn to do, is rest. Resting well. As a Christian, I believe that God has given us a gift of Sabbath, a day of no work, a day of rest, to recuperate, to refresh us, to renew us. And when you look at the scriptures, so many scriptures talk about working hard, like the one I mentioned before about working as if you're working for the Lord. But there's also just as much, you need to have a whole day of rest. So it's both. And I think working hard also ties into actually working hard to rest well. Because I'm personally, I suck at rest. I'll be like, oh, I should rest, but I feel like I should do some more work. And what happens is I don't rest, and then I don't have the energy to like show up the next week. And look, there are times where you're gonna have to show up when you don't have energy, but when you rest well and you do it properly and you have a good system, you can be more consistent in working hard, and you will have less days where you have to show up when you feel like absolute garbage.
Yeah.
And I think even like scheduling what you're going to do in your rest day, that's an element of like work to prepare for that. Yeah. Would you guys have thoughts on that?
I just come back to what you've talked about earlier on, which is sometimes like it's not exactly a software issue, it's a hardware issue. Which means that sometimes you can have a great mindset, but if you had 1 hour of sleep, you're going to be more irritated, you're going to be more distracted, you're going to be more susceptible to distraction, you're going to be more susceptible to getting frustrated. So it's going to ruin everything. Make sure that you look after the Trinity: exercise, sleep, and nutrition.
I like that.
Yeah, the Holy Trinity. Yeah.
Holy Trinity. The second Holy Trinity.
Yeah. That's all I have for now.
No, I agree with that. And I'm going to go analogies here, but it's like servicing a car. You can't expect it to run well if you don't service it, replace the parts, fuel, fluids, whatnot. And that's the same with, it comes down to the what you were saying about sleep, nutrition, training, hydration, and all that. It's the same thing with the car. You don't want to rev it all the way to the red. You want it to run efficiently.
Yeah.
Pulp Fiction reference there. In the red.
Beautiful. All right, guys. I think that's all we have for our first section of the podcast. We're probably going to do another one where we do another lesson from the year. But does anyone have anything else they want to share before we finish?
Shout out to Untested Podcast. Make sure you listen to it. They're gonna plug it in here, and they're gonna put a link in this bio right here, Jamie.
They will,
link right
they
here.
will, they will. Thanks, Jamie.
I also have some other words I want to share. I was going to say shout out to Untested Podcast. You stole mine, so thanks, Sean. No, I think have fun. Have fun this year. I just feel like I have to say that. I feel like it's good to work hard, but have a balance of responsibility and play.
I'm just feeling your muscle because I'm loving it, man. It's getting massive. Yeah, let's wrap it up.
I'll wrap it up.
All right, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you. Love you, and see you soon.
Mwah. We're going to record another one? Or?
Yeah, we'll do another one.
Let's
see how that was.
But like,
I reckon
I gotta
just leave it at that for now, and then do another one. 'cause